This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic!
What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is October 19th, 2023. Jonathan Osborne here. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia. Luke, what is going on, brother? How are you?
As everybody's listening to this, October 19th, it is my 5-year anniversary with my lovely wife.
Golf clap.
Happy anniversary to Lauren, who is not going to listen to this episode. It's 5 years comes and goes, man. It feels like genuinely, it's very cliche, but it feels like just yesterday. It has flown by, as I'm sure you resonate with as well. But got to celebrate the Magic just in general by being in Amway with a bunch of fans. It just felt right, Jonathan. I woke up and I was like, it's Magic game day. I had no intention of going to the game the night before, right? Then I wake up and I'm like, man, if I can make it happen, I'm going to make it happen. I just made that decision. Wife gave me her blessing. I said, great, going to the Magic game. So this week has just felt right, Jonathan, is the best way I can explain it.
What were the vibes like in Amway? They seem to be great. Like I was watching from home, Bally Sports Florida, and you hear the, from Bally. And then here comes in the drone shot of Orlando and David Steele. It's a beautiful October night in Central Florida. I'm like, damn right, David. It sure is. We are back, baby. Yeah. Like that hit like absolute crack. Like you would have thought Paolo hit a 3 with like 13 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The way that I got up and I'm flexing like, yeah, we're back, baby. Bally, Florida. Oh, we're back.
It's a beautiful night.
It's a beautiful night in Central Florida. The vibes from home were immaculate. I can only imagine what they were like in the arena.
It was awesome. It was, everybody just very happy to be back. And listen, ESPN app, I'm not trusting it at all, but it would validate my point that the game felt fuller than what I can remember in terms of like a preseason game. ESPN has it listed that the attendance was 17.6K. I don't think that's the case, but it wasn't empty. Like it wasn't empty at all. It was loud. It was quiet when the Pelicans scored. It was loud when the Magic scored. It was great. You had and that's another good thing about it being the Pelicans last night. You didn't see a lot of Pelicans jerseys. You saw a couple Zion jerseys here and there, but other than that, I mean, it was a really fun night.
Your brother, we're getting into the personal life here, obviously, but your brother shared to his Instagram story that like going to a Magic game with Luke Sylvia is like going with like a Magic celebrity. Like you're just getting catcalled left and right. What's going on with that?
That is the funniest part about the show is that if I didn't look at the numbers, the way I would gauge the show's growth is just by how many people said hey. How many people said, hey?
We appreciate that, man.
We do, man. And it is awesome. You made me look good around my family. My family loves going to games with me because they're like, what is this? Because they know that I do this and they know that, we record a ton and we're so committed to the show and whatever. But then you go to a game and it puts things in perspective, man. And it's super cool that like our listeners are incredible. And they're not disrespectful.
We love you guys. You little little rascals.
I had you little rascals. I had somebody say hey to me last night. They called my name. Like my brother and I were sitting down with food from the Goya little cart right there, which is pretty good, by the way. Like pretty authentic burrito tasting. It's not bad at all. I like it. And it's a way shorter line than the meat carving station. That's for sure. My brother and I sit down there. Someone calls my name. His name is Jay. Pretty positive. Jay calls my name and then just super respectful. Just was like, I talked to him for like a brief second, appreciate the support. He's like, man, get back to your food. I was like, man, you guys are great. You know that I just want to scarf my face with this real quick. I'm starving. But like it's awesome. I never thought that anything like that would even be possible, but it was awesome.
It's just super nice when people like just say, "Hey, like love the show." Like
Yeah.
people do listen. That's awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's not bots, it's not Russian disinformation or anything like that. People actually listen to the show and they enjoy the show and they have fun in it. It's always cool to say hi.
Yeah.
So if you're out, like don't ever get it twisted. You say what's up to Luke and Jonathan and Kevin and all the boys. We're saying hi back. We're saying hi. If we hear you, we're saying hi back. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'm glad that you had a ton of fun. Stay tuned for later in this episode. We had a great conversation with the Podfather, our boy Philip Rossman-Reich. Always great conversation, always great insight. So stay tuned for that conversation later in the pod. But Luke, go ahead, do me a favor. Talk about a little Jam Hot Chicken for our listeners.
I would love to talk a little bit about Jam Hot Chicken for our listeners, Jonathan. Proudly serving the city beautiful, Jam Hot Chicken's bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. I talked about this on the last episode. And vibes. So many great vibes. But I talked about this on the last episode. Number 4 on Yelp's 2023 list of restaurants in the state of Florida, Jonathan. If that's not a place that you want to be, I can't help you. Yelp is out here. They literally just do all their food ratings and whatever. They wrote an entire article about this restaurant and how incredible it is. And if you guys want to find out how you can get to Jam Hot Chicken, 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. And guess what? If you're like, oh man, I got a lunch break. I need to just do this quickly. I got to go. I got to get back to work, whatever. You can actually go on the website, order now, and just go through there, set a pickup time, go pick up the food from Jam Hot Chicken. That Jam Hot Chicken doesn't give you any excuse. If you were in the Central Florida area, go get that Jam Hot Chicken because listen, man, Jonathan, you have raved about this chicken for a very, very long time since you tried it, since it hit your lips for the first time. And man, if you guys want to go see and check out Jam Hot Chicken, their vibe is incredible. You can tell a lot about a restaurant by their social media. Go to @JamHotChicken on Instagram, especially because they've got it's just such a good vibe on their profile. They know what they're doing. They're marketing geniuses. They lean into the magic. They're Magic fans. Really can't say anything more about this restaurant and about the guys and girls, as you point out, that we partner with over there at Jam Hot Chicken. That's just a habit. I don't know.
Jam Hot Chicken, destination dining. Figure it out. Get there somehow. I don't care what you got to do. What kid's birthday party you got to miss? You go to Jam Hot Chicken. Tell them we sent you. Okay? Post-game live. We have started a new post-game live show presented by Rock'em Socks, or just Rock'em, as now they have underwear and all different kinds of things. But we've been doing that after every single Magic game. Producer Kevin's done a great job at those 3 of those so far. Another one coming on this Friday, and there's going to be one after every single Magic game this season, regular season, and when we get to the playoffs, there will be post-game lives after every single game. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube already, go ahead, go to YouTube, type in the 6-Man Show, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you get notified anytime that we post videos or go live. And Kevin has been doing a great job with those. We really appreciate everybody that's been joining those. All the comments, the likes, the interaction in the chat, the super chats, the super stickers, all really help out the show a ton. Can't say thank you enough. And everybody, just get, right now in your car, just give producer Kevin a nice little golf clap of a round of appreciation for producer Kevin here as I clap in a circle as you do. So be sure to check those out. And then we did the first one of these the night of the draft. We're calling it the 6th Fan Show. So this is something, if you're not familiar with this format, it's definitely more popular amongst like European football clubs. But basically, we have a fan, our boy Ben Gifford, who is a lifelong Orlando Magic fan. If you've been out to our events, you've probably met Ben with us before. But he's outside select Orlando Magic games this year, outside Amway. And we're there to get the fans' perspective, get your takes, your rants, whatever, your drunken rants. We had one of those. I think it's safe to assume that alcohol was involved. And we're not shaming you, Oliver, if you're out there listening. We're not shaming you by any means. It was electric. It was the highlight of the video, in my opinion. But we have a new 6 Fan Show video out that's up on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and check that out. Leave a comment, a like, show some love.
If there wasn't alcohol involved, I got to know just like that. What's his mindset, his perspective on life? Because I need to get there. I need to get there desperately. It was incredible.
It really, really was. Go ahead and go to our YouTube channel, check out the Six Fan Show, and be on the lookout for that every so often. I think we're going to try to do about 20 of those this year. So like essentially every other home game, we'll be there doing these. So if you're going to a home game, we're going to post like, hey, Ben's going to be out there doing the Six Fan Show. Like as soon as you come out of Amway, you're just going to look for the kid with the microphone and the lights. And that's going to be our boy Ben. Be respectful. Don't be putting it on him. Don't be, groping him.
That's right.
Don't be doing anything weird.
That's right.
Just, say what you got to say and keep it moving, Buster. All right. I'm really excited for like big wins. And I'm maybe even more excited for like bad losses to see what people come up with, because people get angry after bad losses.
The reason this is popular in the European countries, Jonathan, is because they are so passionate about their team and about the sport that they are just off the handle at all times, out of pocket. And we need you guys to respectfully be that way with the Six Fan Show. Brings a better viewing experience. Just lay it all out there. You don't got to pretend who you are. You're a big Magic fan. Let's hear it, win or lose, how you're feeling, because it'll be a better experience for yourself, and it'll be a better experience for the viewers at home.
I haven't talked about this yet, and I haven't discussed this. I'm just calling an audible. We're gonna do like a rant of the year. Like all the Six Fan Shows, whoever has like the best rant will do something for. Now listen, that doesn't mean be an idiot. Don't do anything out of pocket. Don't get anything that's gonna like demonetize our YouTube video. That will disqualify you. And if you do something like that, you won't make it in the video. We'll just cut it. But like a genuine, passionate rant, we'll see what the best one is at the end of the year, and we'll do a little something special for you. I might have just wished something upon Ben that he doesn't want any part of, but
it's me gripping that mic
we'll
with
see
two
what
hands.
happens. Hold that mic, Ben. Just hold on to that mic. The Magic, they have signed free agent guard Daquan Plowden. The Magic announced today on Wednesday. Undrafted, he's played 154 games at Bowling Green State University, averaged 12.5 points per game, 6.1 rebound in 25 minutes per game. Mie Oni, who was signed late last week, I believe, has now been waived. So Plowden, just another guy that the Magic are trying to get a look at here in preseason. And then in other Magic news, I think this was first announced by Sports Business Journal, but the Orlando Sentinel had a write-up on it today. The Orlando Magic have basically come to terms with developers JMA Ventures and the Machete Group to spearhead the project of the downtown, like Amway Center area entertainment district development that has now been talked about. It feels like for close to 10 years. Looks like the anticipated start date is before the end of 2024. So sometime in the next year from now, that should start to get underway. It says the project is slated to include a 260 room full service hotel with 16,000 square feet of meeting and conference space, 270 residential units, 200,000 square feet of Class A office space, 125,000 square feet of retail space, a 3,500 capacity live event venue, an urban town square, and more than 1,100 parking spaces. So there's going to be shops, restaurants, a live event venue. That is going to be just a ton of fun. And once that is like officially completed, I think we can really start talking about another all-star weekend in Orlando. So really excited for that. I know so many Orlando residents are ready for them to start development on that project. Bally Sports announced today the broadcast schedule for the 2023-2024 season. Really the highlight of this for me was that Dante Marchitelli, in his 25th year covering the Magic, will also fill in for David Steele as the play-by-play announcer for select broadcasts this season. I saw that in the release, tweeted it out, and obviously tons of questions are starting about David Steele and is he retiring? Is this the end? So on and so forth. A couple of things that I want to say. One, like the COVID seasons especially, Dante has done such a great job filling in the play-by-play role when he's been asked to do that. He's also called games, for the Lakeland, now Osceola Magic as well. But I don't think this is like the necessarily like the beginning of the end for David Steele. Like it feels like the end for David Steele is still a few years away. I feel like this is just the very beginnings of what will be a pretty slow transition. Now, does Dante Marchitelli end up being the play-by-play guy? It seems like for the last couple of years, they've sort of been prepping him for that, but who really knows? But I think people are just sad that like this is the first like real sign that like, hey, David Steele probably won't be around forever.
Listen, he's what, 70? So he's been doing this song and dance for a very long time. He has seen it all. And listen, let's be honest. Once I'm 70, I don't know about you, Jonathan. Once I'm 70, I don't think I really care what it is I'm doing. I'm going to be starting to back away a little bit, maybe even sooner. So I cannot, fault whatever is, Dante stepping in. I don't know the logistics of it. I don't know, whatever, who initiated all that. But I'm confident in saying that, nobody is telling David Steele that we're, this is going to be, we're winding down here, right? Like David Steele is incredible. He's a gem. Like you said last night, just hearing his voice through the television, so many Magic fans just love this man, and rightfully so. He's going to call the shot. When he thinks he's done, he will call it. And so I think at this point he understands. He is 70. Dante Marchitelli, more than capable, as you said. I'm super pumped for the opportunity for Dante. I'm super pumped for David to get maybe some more time at home and just enjoy everything that is going on. So it's awesome, honestly, is what it is. It stinks for Magic fans. I want to hear David every night, but Dante's going to do an awesome job, and we're familiar with his voice and love him as well.
And to your point, like this had to be a David Steele,
think so.
Decision. Nobody's telling David, hey man, you need to take some time off. This is David like, hey, this is what I want to do. And at this point, this is what is best for me. So just the idea that someday David Steele won't be the play-by-play announcer for the Magic, I think just makes a lot of people absolutely crazy and sad. And it is sad. Hopefully that day is still a long, long, long time from now. But like traveling with this team for a 82 game slate is not an easy thing. And the fact that a lot of these guys have been able to do this for as long as they have, like Dante going into his 25th year, Jeff Turner has been, around for a decade plus now on that broadcast schedule. David Steele now, like that's a hard thing to do. So everybody calm down. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a very slow transition is what I would, the way that I would put it. And then in addition, Ryan Bass, who graduated from the University of Central Florida and has contributed in the past to Bally Sports' coverage of the Tampa Bay Rays. He is joining a Magic broadcast in select games this year as the pregame, postgame, halftime host. So all of that, if you put the pieces together, the games that David is not calling and Dante is filling in for the play-by-play, it seems like Ryan Bass will be filling in for Dante as the pregame, halftime, and postgame host. So welcome, Ryan Bass, to the Bally Sports Magic family and the Magic family in general, and looking forward to meeting him at some point. But yeah, Luke, that's the Magic news. We do have a game to talk about. On Tuesday night, the Magic had their first preseason loss of the year, a 104-92 loss to the New Orleans Pelicans. And in this game, we got to see a little bit more of the starters. They played into the second half as well, but we did get a pretty healthy chunk of, sort of what we would call the third unit and some of those Exhibit 10 guys. Really, for the first time all preseason, Luke, turnovers were a big problem for the Magic's first unit, especially in that first half. They had 10 first half turnovers, and then just shooting the basketball. Magic 13 for 47, good for 27%. Just didn't shoot the ball well enough in this game. And yeah, New Orleans was able to take advantage of that. And if this was the regular season, probably see the start. Well, we definitely see the starters a lot more. this is by no means like a game that the Magic lost. Like the Magic were very competitive until they started to pull the regular guys, and then it sort of got out of hand, over the course of the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter there, Luke.
Something that I talked about in the last episode, and it really came, it was still true for this game. A lot of people, and we talk about this with Phil, but a lot of people are trying to hit the panic button on one Paolo Banchero. Obviously, being the star player or a co-star player on this team, he's the first person you go to when you look at the box score. Because you're like, what did Paolo do tonight? For better or worse, what did Paolo do? Paolo, 2 of 9 in this one, 0 of 2 from 3, and 5 points, 2 assists, 2 turnovers. By all accounts, not a great Paolo Banchero game. But despite that, going into the stretch with the, down to the end of the third quarter, because really the deep bench is what we're going to probably call them here, played the fourth quarter. Magic are still pretty much going toe-to-toe. The Pelicans starters are still giving the Magic all they can handle, to be honest. Like at points in this game, you can definitely see it. You can see it by the plus or minus. Zion as a +6. Zion first also. Zion Williamson, man. The dude is just a specimen. And seeing him in person, wild.
Everybody wants to talk about the 5 steals in this game for Paolo Banchero. For whatever reason, Markelle Fultz and Paolo Banchero decided to dip their entire hands into a basket of popcorn. It just could not hang on to the ball in the first half. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, look at Zion. It's look, our guys, give him a little bit of credit, but our guys also could not hang on to the ball. The Zion love that I'm seeing yesterday and today, I'm like, okay, let's just calm down. All right.
I mean, he's great. We'd hopefully for Pelicans' sake he can stay healthy, but just a massive human being and dunks the ball with force that is ridiculous. But really, my point is Paolo doesn't play well, but the Magic still are in this game very much so. And then you look and it's well, yeah, Franz Wagner, 3 of 6 from 3, 8 of 3 from the field, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Franz Wagner was awesome in this game. And he's a lot of fun to watch. The Magic early on hitting just corner 3 after corner 3, it felt like. Wendell, obviously, early on. Seems like it's kind of deja vu, right? Wendell was hitting at corner 3 early, and it feels like a lot of these games. And they're just playing good basketball. And I think that it all comes back to, if your star player's not playing well, but you're still in the game, your team's in a good spot. And this team is in a very good spot.
Yeah. Going to the bench unit, J.I. in almost 10 minutes, 3 block shots. Really, really impressive. Still a special defender. I think that, for me, that was one of the biggest takeaways from this game, is he might not be all the way there right now. Still largely rehabbing. We talked about this with Phil. Seems like he's on a minutes restriction. But man, when that dude cranks it up to 10, he is still every bit just a super special defender. He had this turnaround block on CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum thought he had J.I. beat, and J.I. just smacked it. Had this other play where he went to double team Jonas Valanciunas, and forget who was also there guarding Valanciunas. Maybe it was Cole. I might be mistaken. But that guy sort of peeled off and gave Valanciunas just a free run to the rim, hit a little half spin move. And it was okay, this is going to be an easy layup. And J.I. almost sent it into the third row. So that was really fun to see that. The Paolo stuff, we talked about this on the last podcast. I wanted to see Paolo have a really dominant offensive game here. He didn't, but he was asked after the game, are you concerned at all? And Paolo's like, I'm not concerned, or are you concerned? This is Paolo Banchero. I've talked about this a couple of times, but just his unwavering confidence. When people talk about it, and it isn't really a thing that you can put your finger on, but that man, we would talk about aura. That man has aura. I don't care what anybody says. Paolo Banchero just drips confidence, and it's really one of my favorite things about him. But yeah, I mean, Magic came in. If we're looking at some of the guys that came in off the bench towards the end of this game, Caleb Houston 1 for 4, Jet Howard 0 for 6, Chuma Okeke 1 for 4, Trevelyan Queen 0 for 1. Jonathan Isaac didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Neither did Markelle Fultz or Wendell or Paolo Banchero. So the fact that you were still in this game just really speaks to Franz Wagner stepping up, Mo Wagner stepping up. He had 16.7 of 10 from the floor. Mo Wagner is just going to have games like that every now and then where you cannot stop him. Might not make a ton of sense, but Mo Wagner just does things like that from time to time. This was the first game where I felt like we really got a look at what the rotation will be. If for no other reason, then why are we wasting preseason? We talked about the platoon stuff with Phillip, but we had the starting lineup of Markelle, Jalen, Franz, Paolo, Wendell, and then the bench unit was Cole, Gary, Joe Ingles, Jonathan Isaac, Mo Wagner. Through the first couple of games, there's been some inconsistencies there. No Jonathan Isaac in the second half of games. Joe Ingles missed the first game. Gary Harris missed the second game. Anthony Black was sort of inserted into those minutes when those guys missed. So like when I'm looking at the puzzle and sort of the pieces that have been laid out in front of us, to me, that says this is probably what the rotation is going to be like in the regular season, but we just have to wait about another week to see that. I know we're talking about this game, but there's something that I want to say just for a minute or so here. There's a conversation that I've been seeing more frequent in recent days and in recent weeks, and it's the argument amongst Magic fans of who is better, Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner. Regardless of what you think, okay, in that regard, the having the conversation in a public fashion like that, and I know these guys are, $1 million athletes and blah, blah, blah. Who cares what people are saying on Twitter? These guys are absolutely searching their names on a sometimes daily basis to see what people are thinking about them. And they just don't need to see people arguing about our two best players, who is the better player. Because it's not just like, oh, I think this guy is better. Like, people are going back and forth, having dissertations on who they think is better. It does not matter. They are both on our team, and it doesn't bring anything positive. Like, I don't think anything good can come from that conversation. And we certainly don't want to get to the point where we're like tearing down the other player to say why the guy that we like more is the better player and sort of like pitting these young guys against each other. We want these guys to be the absolute best versions of themselves, the best players that they can be, and the best of friends. We want everything with these two guys to work. It's in everybody's best interest. And to me, it's just kind of silly that I keep seeing that. Rant over.
Well, I'll add and reply. I've had one of my friends continuously say Franz is better than Paolo, or Franz will be better than Paolo. And to that, what I say to him every time is, I don't personally care which one is going to be better as long as one of them is a top 10 talent in the league. I know that is a lot to ask for, but from one of these two guys, I get a shot that one of them is going to be a top 10 guy. I feel good about it. It's a better chance than a lot of these teams that are in the situations that they're in, where they're, rebuilding or whatever. I don't really care. Now, what I will add is that I don't mind the conversation about Franz and, who is better right now or who's the highest. I don't mind it, but I do mind it when, like you said, when it becomes to the point where you were just tearing the other player apart, because that just doesn't help you, like, as a fan. It's another thing if another team fan of another team does it, whatever. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. People have these debates all the time about, two players on the team, whether it's Tatum and Brown or whatever, right? Even though I don't think that's much of a debate, but the point still stands. You can pit guys against each other all the time. I don't mind it if it's from another team, but if you're a fan of the Magic, there's no reason that you should be like, Paolo's been like trash in the preseason or anything like that. Because number one, preseason, ultimately, we know this, it doesn't matter. And like
for
I've
guys
said,
like Paolo, it doesn't matter. For some guys, it does. For Paolo, the preseason does not matter. Anybody that is concerned about Paolo right now, like, just go back and watch some highlights from last season, like what he did as a rookie.
Yeah, he's not going to...
It's so silly.
There's not going to be a regression in that respect for a talent as good as Paolo Banchero. So, like I said, I don't mind the conversation, but if you are just ripping the other person apart, the other player apart, that's not productive. And it doesn't matter. Like, neither of these guys are bad players at all. These are the guys that you're trusting that are going to elevate this franchise for years to come, hopefully the next decade. So that's my reply to that. But it is ridiculous. There's extremes to everything, and unfortunately, fans of teams, as Magic fans included, can go way past the line.
All right, let's go to a quick word from our patrons before we get into our conversation with our boy Philip Rossman-Reich. So if you have not heard about our Patreon, we do have a Patreon, which you can find us at patreon.com/the6man show. Patreon is a platform where you can partner with your favorite creators to help them create the content that you love. For as little as $2 a month, you can help support our show, where we have additional tiers with additional benefits, with things like joining our Discord community. We have an awesome Discord community. People are literally in there almost 24/7 talking Magic basketball throughout the day, during games, after games, weekends, holidays, anything happens, you name it, we're talking about it in our Discord. Also, we have monthly Patreon exclusive Zooms where you can join and just hear what's going on with the show, get a little bit of a behind the scenes look. Sometimes we don't even talk Orlando Magic basketball. We're just sort of all hanging out. It's a lot of fun. And then our highest tier, you can get discounts off of regular season Orlando Magic home games. So if you want to check any of that out, any of that interests you, you can find us at patreon.com/the6man show. And for our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons, we give them a special shout out every single episode. So I will go ahead and start with the Court Cousins, and then Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Jonathan Borges, Normal, Magic Player History, Gabe Gaines Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, Donkey Punch Dave, Paolo and Franz's Warmth, Pierre A, Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Eduardo Sanchez, Drum, Drummy, Drum, Danimal, Dutto 15, Bobby Skinner, PB in the Mix, Goody 93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez Fuchsia, Juan Geraldo, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Hosea Squealan, Destined for Greatness, Caleb Pete, Cannibalism, Time, Mr. TV, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95 Shred, Junior Bruce, Half Freak, and Shahin 177, Olby the Don, Himlo Bama Himro, RM Prop 221, Ray Pastrana, Magic Kid 714, Spanking Season, Soft Taco, Fuego Nando, Victor Cologne, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampy, Random Hustle, Only Franz, Maria, Keith Wallace, Fritz, Currency Kev, Bruv Sal, Cason Green, Santi Leon, Kane, Eckler. A big shout out to all of our patrons and our Hall of Fame and Elite tier patrons. You can find us at patreon.com/the6man show. And without further ado, let's get into our conversation with the Podfather, Philip Rossman-Reich. Magic fans, we are now joined by a very special guest, in these parts affectionately referred to as the Podfather, but you can find him weekdays on Locked On Magic and every day on OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Philip Rossman-Reich, our good friend. Philip, how the heck are you, man? Good to see you.
I am doing good. I don't know when this is publishing, but a week until the games count, my guys. We're almost here.
Yeah, we're recording this Wednesday night. Last night we got another dose of Orlando Magic preseason. Magic against the Pelicans, their first loss of the preseason. But Philip, overall, you talk a lot on your show, about preseason is just sort of an extension of training camp, and you want to see the team start to progress and ramp up as they go into the regular season. From the start of preseason until now, what are your thoughts? How have the Magic look, in 3 games so far?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, we haven't really seen like the full rotation yet. Like it's been kind of platoons. It's been the starters play with the starters, the bench guys play with the bench guys. Like Jet Howard hasn't even played with any, like beside maybe Goga Batadze, but he hasn't really played with any of the rotation regulars. A few minutes with Anthony Black here and there, but so it's hard to say, like, get a full glimpse of who this team is going to be. But I really like the energy this team's playing with on both sides of the ball. I think that they've done a really good job, at least in the preseason, trying to make up some of the deficiencies that I think we saw throughout last season, as far as especially their 3-point attempts. I know I've talked a lot about kind of the 3-point math, where the Magic were a team that did a really good job defending the paint. They gave up a lot of 3-point attempts, and they didn't take a lot of 3-point attempts to combat that. Or the teams that don't take a lot of 3-point attempts, the Denver Nuggets take fewer 3-point attempts than the Magic do, but they shoot 38, 39, 40% on threes. The Magic are shooting 33%. So it's a little bit of a difference. The Magic are definitely, I think there's a an increased emphasis on getting higher value shots, just in general. And the way the Magic are kind of vocalizing this is it's all about the paint. The Magic want to win the paint. And to me, that gives this team an identity. Like there is something that we can measure. There's something we can see. There's something this young team can focus on and say, if we win this battle, or if we kind of hold to this identity, we're going to win a lot of games. And I think so far, at least in preseason, and it's obviously preseason, the Magic have held up their end of the bargain, and we can clearly see, okay, this is what this team is trying to do. And now we can watch it branch out and grow. And there's a lot of confidence in what they do too, which I think is a big thing.
Do you think that there is such a thing for this team as taking way too many threes? Because
yes.
You look at that Pelicans game last night, you look at another game I know for sure, 47 attempts against the Pelicans in their rematch. So do you think that is definitely way too many? And where do you think this team could be at to avoid being maybe bottom of the pack?
Yeah, I definitely think there is such a thing as taking too many threes. Because you want, Jamal Mosley says this all the time. You want kick out feet set threes. You don't want kind of pull up threes. You don't want kind of desperation threes. You want high quality 3-point shots that, that's kick outs to the corner, especially the Magic's corner 3-pointers are way up. They average around, I know this has been an obsession of mine throughout the preseason. They averaged like 6.1, 6.2 corner 3-pointers per game. They had 9 each in the games with the Pelicans and the Cavaliers. And then I, at least if I counted correctly, because these stats are not super readily available, they took 22 against the Pelicans on Tuesday in Orlando. So these are high quality threes for the most part. Now, can the Magic settle for these threes? Absolutely. They got to make sure they get a paint touch. I know that's a big thing for this team. And so there's definitely a thing as too many threes if you're not getting the paint. I think in Tuesday's game against the Pelicans in Orlando, because they were both on Tuesday, but the game in Orlando against the Pelicans, the Magic took only 30 field goal attempts in the paint. They're 20 for 30 in points in the paint. They got outscored 50-40. If you're looking for a reason why the Magic lost that game, that's going to be a big indicator, I think, for the Magic throughout the season that they're winning that paint battle. Just beyond that, though, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. Shy away from kind of the overall numbers in these preseason games. They took 45, I think, in that first game. They took 40. They took 40 plus in the second game against the Pelicans. Some of that has to do with the pace. The Pelicans are trying to run a lot more. The Magic are also trying to run a lot more. So there's definitely more possessions involved in these. And also a lot of those threes come in the fourth quarter when you don't have really clean offense and guys kind of have to settle for threes a little bit. So the 3-point attempts are definitely up. Don't get me wrong. I think they averaged 31 or 32 per game last year. I think they are hitting that average through 3 quarters. So before the deep bench guys get in, they're already at that average. And I think for the Magic, probably I used to always say 30 was probably their magic number for 3-point attempts, just because they're not a great shooting team. It's not a huge emphasis, but I do think they want to emphasize it a little more. So I would say 35 is probably where they want to be around, maybe like 33, 34. Because if you're taking too many threes, that probably means you're not getting in the paint. You're not getting high value, high percentage shots. You're taking a lot of threes, and that, 3-pointers can be a little bit random. And especially with this team, not something you want to rely on.
Philip, a big question for fans throughout the offseason was who is going to be the starting shooting guard heading into the regular season this year. And the internet sleuths throughout training camp were out trying to see what color jersey is this guy wearing. Okay, Gary's wearing gray today. Jalen's wearing black. What does that mean? Now Jalen has started all 3 preseason games. For us, it seems like it's a foregone conclusion at this point. He's a starting shooting guard. But what's your thoughts on that? And then just how would you evaluate Jalen through training camp through the first few preseason games here?
Yeah, I my biggest, I was probably, I don't want to say Team Gary, but I thought that the Magic, I said entering camp that the job is Jalen Suggs to win. If he can prove himself, he definitely gives this team something extra, especially on the defensive end. Not that Gary Harris is a bad defender, but Jalen Suggs is a disruptive defender. Gary Harris is solid. He's going to keep his man in front of him. He's going to be in the right spots and help. He isn't going to sneak behind and get a steal like Jalen Suggs will. He's not going to kind of get into a point guard and make he's going to get into a point guard and make his life miserable in a way that Gary Harris doesn't. So I think the Magic ultimately are leaning into that defense. And my question, the reason why I still lean toward Gary was the shooting balance. The Magic needed another shooter. And even if he's not, a guy that's taken 6-7 3-pointers per game, which is where I personally thought Gary needed to get to. He's at 4.5 last year. Even though he's not like a high volume 3-point shooter, just that little bit of extra spacing would help the team. But if Suggs can prove himself to be a capable shooter, and he's looked okay, certainly a lot more confident, but okay as a 3-point shooter so far in the preseason, then that opens the door for everything. Because his defensive impact is very, very real. You could see that in, the Magic, I think, had a +2 or +1.8 net rating with the starting group last year with Gary Harris. It was only 54 minutes with Jalen Suggs, but it was +11 and with a 102 or 103 defensive rating. There is a very real impact to Jalen Suggs' defense. And I have been pleasantly impressed with how that impact is translated in preseason. He certainly looks like he fits right in and has helped elevate that defense. That's helped the Magic get out and transition a little bit more. He's been a threat from the 3-point line. And I think, just as important, I think the Magic made some key changes to their offense to try and kind of cover up some of those weaknesses. And I think that too has really worked and made it possible for Suggs to play in those lineups.
The big topic of discussion really in the last maybe couple months, especially, and it's been the case since they got drafted, but with AB and with Jet, there's people that have said, they've come out of the woodwork about, these are lottery picks. They should get run, or they expect them to. And it just seems like the Magic have gotten so stuck in this world of our rookies have to play. They need to develop because but we're used to having nobody else. Now you've got other people. And that's what I tell people too, is you need to look at the roster. Tell me who are they playing in for? Looking at this, Phil, do you think that is the case, that we won't see too much of them getting minutes this season? And do you see a world where there's a path to minutes for them this year?
I mean, Jeff Weltman said it from day one, from the moment they were drafted on draft night. We're not in a stage where we're gifting 30 minutes to a rookie anymore. You got to, if you're looking for any clearer sign that the franchise, that the organization believes this is a playoff team, it's the freedom they give the coach to let him make decisions to win games. This isn't about development anymore. And as much as, Anthony Black needs to play, he definitely needs to play to get better. The game looks, I hear everyone who's a little concerned with him. I've been fielding calls from people. I've been, getting messages from people concerned about Anthony Black. And it's just the game just still looks a little fast for him. Even Jet, who, I think's transitioned a lot better. Everything just looks really fast. And you expect that from rookies. And so they were, I think I wrote this right after drafting Anthony Black. It's going to take some time. He has a skill set that should translate to the league once he gets comfortable. It's just the comfort of getting that time. Now, I think we all recognize the margin for error is pretty small for this team as far as making or missing the playoffs. The East is going to be really competitive. And I think the Magic are not sold out to make the playoffs, but they want to put their team in a position to win, because that's ultimately going to help the guys that really matter develop. We need to see Paolo and Franz play meaningful games in March and April, and hopefully later than that. We need to see Wendell and Markelle in a playoff series. That stuff is really, really, really important for this team and its development. And probably the most, if we're talking about development, that's probably the most important thing we need to see from this team. So figuring out a way for Anthony Black and Jet Howard to fit in is definitely tough. And they had training camp to kind of prove themselves, to see where they belong and where they fit in this roster. And unfortunately, they're behind some veterans like Gary Harris, Joe Ingles are guys that are going to help this team win. And so, when this team is fully healthy, it feels like Anthony Black is the 10th player in a 9-man rotation. Jet Howard's the 11th man in a 9-man rotation. And so they're going to be having to wait a little bit for their opportunity and make sure they get their work in. I've seen some people suggest maybe they should go to the G League, and that could be an option if they're not getting much practice time. But look, an 82 game season is a long, long time. Magic fans don't need to be told what can happen in an 82 game season. They're going to get their opportunity. Everyone on the roster, when you have a 15 man roster, everyone on the roster is going to be called on at some point to give you meaningful minutes. And you hope that those guys are ready when their number is called. And I think that's going to be the opportunity that Anthony and Jet are going to have to wait for, and they're going to have to take advantage of when it comes. Their opportunity may not be immediate because this team has other goals and this team has other players they want to develop and they want to see. And maybe it's, kind of a Steve Kerr thing. Steve Kerr used to do this thing where, Leandro Barbosa was in his rotation every so often, maybe once every 2 weeks, once every week and a half, he'd sit Barbosa, play a young player, and it would be just like, hey, I just need to give this guy confidence and say hey, I still believe in you. This is going to be your game. Take it. And so, maybe that's the approach the Magic are going to take. But, everything has to be earned now. This is not a rebuild anymore. Got to change your mindset. This is not a rebuild. This is a team that is trying to make the postseason and trying to do something now.
Yeah, the way that I see it, right now, I'm not even really confident that Anthony Black is in the regular rotation because through the first couple of preseason games, it seems like, Joe was out, so Anthony got Joe's minutes. Second game, Gary was out, so Anthony got Gary's minutes. Tuesday, all 10 regular guys, starters at the bench unit, played in the first half. We didn't see Anthony Black at all. So I think my next question, this sort of ties into that, is right now it seems like J.I. is on a minutes restriction. We were all there at Media Day. He was asked, do you think you're on a minutes restriction? He said, well, from my perspective, I don't think I am because nobody has said anything to me about that. But he's only played exclusively in the first half. So he's played 8 or 9 minutes. We haven't seen him play a single second in the second half of any of these games. What is your take on that, Phil? Some people seem to have this idea that they're just kind of saving him because it's preseason, and then once the regular season starts, he'll be full go, but I don't know that I'm sold on that.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of build on the previous point too. We haven't seen the Magic play a rotation yet. I think I mentioned this earlier. They're kind of in platooning guys. The starters have played with the starters. The bench have played with the bench. We know that the Magic last year liked to play Franz with that second unit, to start second quarters. I think one of the things that actually happened in the New Orleans game on Tuesday at the Amway Center was the reason why New Orleans was able to kind of stay in the game is they played Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson some second quarter minutes when the bench groups were in. They looked like they were playing a more regular rotation. So we haven't seen the a lot of this is conjecture and really based off last year because we haven't seen the Magic play a rotation yet. We don't know we don't know the groups, the lineups the Magic are going to look like on Wednesday. They're going to put out Wednesday against Houston. I personally would have liked to see some experimenting get done. There was a stretch in the game against the Pelicans where Zion wasn't at center. I would have loved to see, okay, let's throw Paolo out there. This is a perfect chance to test this out and see what the spacing looks like against another team. But instead they kept Mo Wagner in, and Mo Wagner was guarding Zion, or I think it was, in the first game against New Orleans, it was Jonathan Isaac guarding Zion, in those minutes. So, to get back to the question then, I don't know. I don't know what the rotation is going to be. I think there is someone on the roster that, maybe is getting more minutes in the preseason than he's going to get in the regular season because you're going to probably settle in on a 9-man rotation. Maybe you start the year at 10, but as you get deeper into the season, you're going to start narrowing that down and really fine tuning the guys that you really, really trust. And, look, obviously Jonathan Isaac's an incredible defender. I think the Magic are going to still be a little bit cautious with him. I never completely bought that he was completely off a minute restriction because an 82 game schedule is really difficult. And he hasn't done a regular schedule since December 2019. It's been 3 full years, coming near 4 years since that initial knee injury that knocked him out. So he hasn't been through the grind. And so I think there's going to be days where he's sore, and I think there's going to be back-to-backs where they sit him. And that's just protective, because they want him to last the whole season. I know there's data saying that load management doesn't work the way we think it does, but for a guy that hasn't played a full season in 3 years, I think Isaac will be load managed a little bit, even if there aren't medical restrictions on him to keep him from doing that. It's just, you gotta make sure that see how his body responds and just be a little bit careful with that because we haven't seen it. But I think it's a fair question. We don't know what this rotation is going to look like yet. We don't know what mad scientist experiments Mosley's been running in practices that he hasn't put out in these preseason games. And we're certainly not going to see any of that against Flamengo. There's no reason to show anything against Flamengo. I wouldn't be surprised if like some key guys didn't play against Flamengo because there's
going to show a lot of Caleb Houston against Flamengo.
A lot of Caleb Houston's got some time to make up. But again, back to the previous points, like Anthony Black hasn't played with any of the starters yet. Like as much as he struggled, I'd like to see him play with better players. Jet Howard has not really played with even the bench guys that much. That's something I personally would like to see to get at least for me, maybe Jamal Mosley already knows what he wants to see from that because, he has access to practice. But I want to see some of this stuff. And so I think there's a lot of stuff still at least to get sorted out, I think there's a lot of fair questions about how this team's going to use guys because, this is a deep team. There are quality players on this roster. And if they perform the way we expect them to perform, there's going to be some decisions and some guys that should be playing that aren't going to be playing.
What do you think is the reason for playing these guys, basically, like you said, with being like platoons, instead of getting reps against other, NBA talent while playing actual rotational minutes and with real rotations? Do you think it is just to play the cards close to the vest and not test out anything in a real game until opening night?
I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I think there's definitely a bit of, hey, let's wait until the right moment to unveil like a lineup that we've been working on that we think is going to be effective instead of, showing it to people. I think a lot of it too is like, yes, there's a lot of continuity on this roster. But I think the Magic changed their offense a little bit, to be perfectly honest. I think their offense is, I don't want to say significantly different, but there's a different philosophy and a different way that they're attacking than I think I've seen in the 2 previous seasons with Jamal Mosley. And so I think they're trying to just make sure they cement it with those groups. And so that when they start mixing and matching, everyone kind of knows what they're doing and how to play together or how to kind of fit in with that group. I think again, like kind of that point, New Orleans adjusted really well to what Orlando was doing. Orlando was doing in the first game. I think the way that they played, certainly once they got comfortable in that second stint and then the third quarter stint in the game in New Orleans, once the Magic got comfortable, they really executed that offense at a high level. And I don't think New Orleans knew really what to do with it. They came out and attacked it very, very differently in that second game. So I think there's a little bit of like, hey, let's keep, we got to show a little bit because we got to work on our basics, but let's keep a lot more close to the vest because once teams get a look at us, then they're going to start game planning for us a little bit. And so I think there's a little bit of that. I mean, I'm curious what you guys think because maybe I'm a little bit off base to say that, but the offense looks really different to me and is trying to attack in a different way than it did in previous years.
Yeah, it's tough for me to say. I mean, I think my next question was going to be like your level of concern for Paolo, like 1 to 10, but we can get into that, of course. But I think part of that is because like Paolo just has not been like nearly as large of a focal point this year. I think there's been an emphasis on sharing the ball, but like it is really moving through 3 games in preseason. I think that's what I've been most impressed by is just like the ball is whipping around and guys just seem to keep cutting like at the perfect time. Like we always talk about how good of a cutter a guy like Franz is, but we've seen it from Jalen. We've seen it from Markelle even. We've seen it from Wendell. Like guys are just finding the open spaces on the floor right now. So that's what I think it is in large part. But back to the question here, what is your level of concern with Paolo? Are you concerned?
No, not at all. Like they're not like I noted this after the first game because both Paolo and Franz had like kind of quiet nights. I know Paolo had the big dunk, but they both had kind of quiet nights. It was just like those guys both look like players who know how to handle themselves and know how to get ready for the regular season. I don't see Paolo being like super aggressive I don't see the Magic like putting him in spots where he typically scores. You're not seeing, and maybe this isn't the offense anymore, but you don't see, which I think would be a mistake because he's really good at this, but you don't see him getting those kind of like mid-post touches. You don't see him like kind of getting some of those looks that he's really, really comfortable with. He's been getting downhill a little bit, but yeah, he's not trying to drive like crazy. They're not running a lot of pick and rolls with Paolo as the ball handler in this preseason. So I think Paolo's just, easing into things. My only little concern is that he struggled to finish at the rim a little bit, but I actually like looked at the numbers. Like Franz shot 43% in his preseason last summer too. Like these guys know how to get themselves ready. Like they'll be fine. Like I'm not worried about Paolo at all. There is one thing that Paolo Banchero was put on this earth to do, and that is score the basketball. Like he will find, he's still getting to the line at a really good clip considering how like kind of passive he's been playing. When the regular season comes about, when the games matter, Paolo is going to be ready. I have no doubt about that.
Phil, what do you think this team has to do for you to consider it a success this year?
I mean, the simple answer is postseason. I've kind of said that the season, that the mantra for the season should be Mission 83. We're trying to play game 83 this year. Like it doesn't matter. Like in-season tournament will mess with that a little bit, hopefully. So maybe it's game 85.
Yeah.
Maybe it's game 85, but the goal for this season is to play game 83. We need to play beyond that game against the Milwaukee Bucks, that last game of the season. That to me is the goal. It's not going to be easily achieved. I think this team is very capable of doing it. But I don't want to dismiss that there are some really good teams in the Eastern Conference, and the Magic haven't proven themselves. And that's always the key this team doesn't know what it doesn't know. And so they're going to be going through kind of the ups and downs and the feeling of their own expectations as much as ours to develop and grow and to get to that level. But, they did it for 57 games last year. That is not insignificant. That is a long time. They were 29-28, really 29-25 if we want to throw out the last 3 games of the season. That is a pretty good track record to build off of. And I think there's every reason to believe that this team can at least match that pace a little bit and put themselves in a good spot.
Scale of 1 to 10, Phil. Confidence that this team actually achieves the goal of making the postseason, whether it's a play-in or whatever. What's your confidence on a scale of 1 to 10 that this team can do that?
I would probably say a 7. I think that you expect individuals to get better when they're this young and this promising. Maybe a couple guys take a step back or stagnate, but they have enough guys who have shown us that they can play better and that they can get better. I think there are some good teams around them, but like Toronto's probably going to be taking a step back. They're still dangerous. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're not and completely throw them out of the group. Chicago, I think, is another team that could take a step back. I am still kind of mystified by why Atlanta is getting a ton of buzz. And yeah, Quinn Snyder's a really good coach, and Trae Young and DeJounte Murray provide a lot of offensive potential, but they lost a key starter for nothing. They got nothing in return for John Collins. I honestly at best see them just treading water and still being a 42 win team. But, when we're talking about the margin for error, at this level of kind of the standings, the difference between a solid 35 win season and a 42 win season is not a lot. And so the Magic win a lot of close games. They're going to be in the playoffs. So, they could do a little bit more maybe. If they're about 500 in close games, they'll be in the mix. If they really struggle in some of those close games and some of those toss-up games, they could be out. They'll be out easily. It's going to come down to injuries a little bit. Injuries, every one of these teams, injuries going to play a huge factor, and you can't ignore that. And so it's going to be a grind, and it's going to be, it's as much as I think we all expect this Magic team to take that next step. I would phrase it this way. I think I think the way we define success for the season is the Magic make the postseason. I don't think that's how we define failure. If the Magic are playing meaningful games late in the season and they happen to fall short because of a missed shot here, a missed shot there, it's a make or miss league, all that stuff, there is something you can take and something you can learn to help this team grow. That's the most important thing. The only way this season's a failure is if they're just not in the race at all. If they're not in the race at all, then we got to start really asking some questions. But I see that possibility is so remote. Like, this team is going to be competitive every night. They're going to give people a reason to watch, and we'll see if they're able to take that next step and learn how to be consistent enough to win on a nightly basis.
Spin a lot of facts. Philip Rossman-Reich. Before we let you go here, go ahead and plug everything that you've got going on. Plug the Patreon, the Twitter, all that stuff. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I got a lot going on. You can, of course, find me on Twitter, my personal Twitter, at @PhilipRR_OMD or X, whatever it's called now. You could follow me on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. That's for Orlando Magic Daily, the website I run. You can listen to my podcast, Locked On Magic, whenever you'd like. We're daily podcasts, so we're comfort food. We're always there. We're always there when you need us. And then you can also check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. That's patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. You can subscribe to that. I'm putting up kind of extra articles, extra little factoids and tidbits, post-game takeaways, a lot of practice reports with audio and video. I'm just trying to add a bunch more, and I'm always open to ideas for what you'd like to add, what you'd like to see added for a little fee. But I'm trying to make myself more available this season, and hopefully it's a fun and good one.
Philip Rossman-Reich, man. Looking forward to seeing you at Amway. We got a week until the regular season. And as always, we know everybody's going to appreciate your coverage, man. Thank you for what you do. And again, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Again, a very big shout out to our boy PRR, Philip Rossman-Reich, PR squared, whatever you want to call him, the Podfather. Always good talking with him. Luke, I just really cannot wait for the Magic season to get started here. And from the time that this video or podcast episode drops, we've got less than a week. We've got 6 days, man.
My nerves, after we play Flamengo on Friday, that is going to be the longest, 4 days of my life. It is going to drag by, and I'm not looking forward to that because I've been dealing with it in the preseason. I wake up and I'm like, man, the Magic don't play today. You got to wait till whenever, right? This Flamengo game, I'm just ready for the regular season at this point. I'm sure the Magic are ready. They made that known as well, that we're done with the preseason. That's the downside of playing Flamengo, your last game of the season and preseason.
Pretty disrespectful to Flamengo, by the way.
Oh, it's going to be...
These guys are literally flying from another continent to come here and play. I know they're super excited.
Pieced.
But, yes. But just to be like, yeah, preseason's over for us. These guys are like, well, what the hell? And they got there, by the way. Like, they came into town Tuesday morning. So they're sitting in Orlando, probably watching the game on TV. And then they see this stuff on social media. Like, yeah, preseason's over for us.
Listen, my response to that is, if you don't like it, do something about it. It's much like late game situations where, guys dunk the ball at the very end of the game when it's unnecessary. You don't like it, don't let it happen. Don't let them be up. Flamengo, hopefully they just give us our best shot. I don't know. I wish that their play would get Jamal to play our guys more minutes, but I know that's going to be unwavering, and Jamal's going to play the guys the amount of minutes that he already plans to. But I would love any excuse for our guys to play more minutes, even if that means that Flamengo is kind of hanging around. But I think we all expect this to be a 40 point win.
Yeah, don't expect the starters to play much. Maybe a few minutes, in the first quarter, just to sort of get out there, get some sweat, get lathered up a little bit. But other than that, don't look at me like that. That's the thing. People say lathered, I want to get a lather going. They want to get a lather going. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. Luke, you would kill to lather up some of these guys on the bench with some baby oil or something. Okay, I don't even want to start talking about you. All right, bro. People know how you are. All right, people know all about Luke Sylvia. Don't you get it twisted. But anyways, don't think that we're going to see our guys, the starters, much in this game. Just get through this last game healthy. That's all I ask for. Let's get to the regular season healthy. Ah, man, you know what? I'm glad that Magic basketball is back, but preseason doesn't hit the same because I'm like, I know we're going to get to the third, fourth quarter, and then we're not going for the win at that point. We're just getting guys out there to get them some run. And I'm just like, the competitor in me is dying to be screaming at this team down 7 in the third quarter because they won't box out or because they're not making their free throws. And then also just get crazy excited when Franz hits like a 32-footer with a minute and a half left to finally give us the lead back. And then on our way to a Magic victory. I can't wait for that. I live for that.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's going to do it. What do you think?
Yep. Lather them up.
That is not going to be the episode title for this one. I can assure you that. That is going to do it for this one. A big thank you to Philip Rossman-Reich for stopping by. And for Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show. We will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!